Today is story time on how I sold my GT Avalanche on Facebook Marketplace. I'll tell you how I made some easy cash and gave a tired old bike new life. I'll tell you how the build video performed on YouTube and how much YouTube paid me as a small YouTube creator. This bike was listed on Facebook Marketplace as one of 3 bikes for sale. There wasn't much detail and the listing only had one photo of this bike. I could tell it was an older GT and I had hoped it was a Zaskar. I sent a message to the seller and waited a week without any response. I could see the listing was still active, so I hit them up again. A few days later, they responded. They knew nothing about this bike. They actually got it while cleaning out old storage units. I made arrangements to pick the bike up later that day. When I got to see the bike in person, there were no decals on the bike and it was really dirty. All of the parts were there, and I knew I could save it, so I paid them their full asking price of $40. When I got home and inspected it the next day, I could faintly make out the outline where the Avalanche decals once lived on the frame. This was not a Zaskar, but a decent bike nonetheless. The plan for the bike was to strip it down to the frame, polish the aluminum, clean and inspect all of the parts, and reassemble the bike with a suspension fork from my parts bin and install new cables and housings. During disassembly, I found that none of my sockets could fit into the crank arms to remove the bolts. This bike seemed to have 15mm bolts securing the crank arms. I determined that I would need to work around them while cleaning the frame up, which polished up nicely. During inspection of the parts, I found that the rear shifter was not working properly and I had to replace it with one from my parts bin. Let's review the costs. I'll put a running total up on the screen. The bike was $40 from Facebook Marketplace. The cables and housings were $10. The new decals used $2 in permanent vinyl from my Cricut vinyl printer. The RockShox fork was free from my parts bin. The new rear shifter was free from my parts bin. Everything else on the bike was good, including the chain. That's a grand total of $52 to restore and upgrade this bike. I listed the bike on Facebook Marketplace for $180. A few days later, an interested buyer contacted me and we arranged to meet later that evening. When the buyer arrived, he told me he was looking for a good bicycle for his son. He gave it a quick test ride around the parking lot and found everything was working and he was happy with the bike. We haggled back and forth on price for a short while and we landed on $160 for the bike. So that's a profit of $108 for this bike, and that's a win in my book. I was happy, he was happy, and my wife would be happy that yet another bike was out of the house. But wait! Let's see how much YouTube paid me for the build video. In the first 4 days, the video has received 960 views, accumulated 79.6 hours of watch time, and added 9 new subscribers. And YouTube will pay me an estimated amount of $2.57 for the video. So, my real profit for the bike is $110.57. If you made it this far, you're a true champion. If you found this video enjoyable, hit that like button and subscribe for more bicycle flipping content.